Jacksonville Jaguars ended the season at 9-8 last year. Tell me about that 2023 season
Missed
for the
the
Jags.
playoffs. They were the 9th team. So if 7 get in, they were 9th. 9th in passing yards, 22nd in rushing yards, and 14th in points scored. Got a couple notable injuries to kind of throw into the mix when we're talking about adding some context to things like passing yards. So Zay Jones, I have him down as missing like half the year. He missed a lot of time. Christian Kirk had an IR stint at the end of the year. That's not going to help with passing production there. Coaching changes, nothing of note. We still got Doug Peterson, still Press Taylor at offensive coordinator. Their passing game coordinator was hired away to the Titans to be offensive coordinator. I'm not expecting big impact changes there.
Dig it. 2024 predictions. Let's start with the offensive line.
This is an offensive line. So I've been using a website, Player Profiler. They had them listed as a quarterback killer offensive line. Bad. So, but they've made some changes. So they brought in center Mitch Morse from the Bills, and they drafted Javon Foster in the 4th round. The 4th rounders, like I've talked about with rookies here, I generally just look at what was the draft pick given up to get them in relation to that position. So we could see a 4th round lineman have an impact this year. We could also not see him have an impact this year. Either way, I haven't seen a lot of changes on this line to say that they're going to be average. I think this is still going to be a rough O-line.
Dig it. So quarterback room, Trevor Lawrence. Where do you see him at?
4,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions last year. Finished as quarterback 13th, is being drafted as quarterback 16th this year. So that's an expert consensus ranking right now. We don't have a lot of ADP values yet, but I could easily see him jumping up to QB 12. What I'll say, like just as a general for all of fantasy football this year, if you're in a 10-team or a 12-team league, this is a great year to just wait and grab one of these last guys. Like there's turnover in the top 10 every year, and I could easily see Trevor Lawrence jumping in and being a top 10 guy. So those stats that he had last year, he's got some hurt receivers that kind of start to provide a story there where his production went down a little bit from the year prior, but 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions last year. I think it was like 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions the year before, which is a lot like what CJ Stroud did last year. And it's really just, did you go up or did you go down? And people think that's what will happen again the next year. It doesn't. He could easily jump back up into what we thought he was going to be last year.
Yeah. This has Trevor Lawrence at 16 and Kirk Cousins at 17, which I know that is like right there interchangeable, but do you feel like doesn't that seem kind of strange of like Kirk Cousins? I know he's coming off of an injury. I know he's going to a new team that doesn't always like to use their offense as you would expect. Like, do you really feel like that is like a grab bag right there, or if you could go either way?
I personally would jump Trevor Lawrence up higher than 16. So I've got the list here. So expert consensus ranking has Jordan Love at 10, Brock Purdy 11, Tua at 12, Justin Herbert at 13. Any one of those guys, I would not be surprised if they came in at like 6th or better.
Yeah.
This has got Justin Herbert. I think we just covered Justin Herbert. Caleb Williams at 14 and Goff at 15. Personally, I feel more comfortable with Trevor Lawrence ahead of those guys. So I could see him jumping up. Kirk Cousins, I wouldn't necessarily move that far up, but in a 2 QB league, I feel like Kirk Cousins is free money.
Yeah.
This has guys broken down by rankings, but once you get past like 20, the production doesn't really fall off linearly. So Kirk Cousins is going to be, I think he can put up the similar numbers to a top 12 guy, even if he's not ranked as 12. Like, I don't care what the ranking is, I care what the output is. All of these guys just seem great quarterback twos.
Yeah. Running back position. Hit me with it.
Travis Etienne is the main guy there. The coaching staff there has talked about wanting more guys to take the load off. I think they drafted someone in the 5th round. 5th round, I don't project to have a big impact in year 1. He might get some playing, so we'll kind of get a gauge of where he's at during the preseason. If we're hearing that he's taking over Tank Bigsby's role, like maybe then I start to track and follow Keelan Robinson out of Texas, but not yet. It's really just, they say they want more guys in there taking production for Travis Etienne, but right now I'm really only seeing Travis Etienne. He's ranked right now at 9. I have him at 8, so same, interchangeable. They have Tank Bigsby, a second-year player. He was a 3rd-round pick. Last year, people were afraid that he was going to eat into a lot of Etienne's production. Maybe he takes a step forward and starts to do that this year, but by the end of last year, he wasn't even the second guy. I think they had Dearness Johnson playing as the second guy, first one in to spell Etienne. So I'm not really looking at anyone else on this team. It's just Travis Etienne who I would be happy with.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, wide receiver position.
Lot of changes. So we've got Calvin Ridley leaving, Zay Jones leaving. I have them listed at 136 targets and 64 targets respectively. So 200 targets leaving. They are bringing in Gabe Davis from the Bills and Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr., rookie first rounder out of LSU, with Malik Neighbors there. He was kind of the second guy there. A bit more raw than someone like Malik Neighbors, and more of a deep threat guy is about as much as I know. Neither Brian Thomas Jr. is not really showing up in the expert consensus ranks as someone that you would have a hard time drafting. I think he's going at 52 at receiver, so you can get him pretty late and see what happens, how they bring him along. In an auction, I say he's like $1 or a $2 guy. With someone like that, you got to hold for 5 weeks to see what he becomes. You just have to know what you're buying. If you're buying a late first round rookie wide receiver, but other than they need guys to step in and fill targets, so it could be him. But when you call out stats like 200 targets are leaving this offense, sometimes they just go away. Sometimes the team just gets worse. Last year we saw Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs, didn't have receivers, targets left, they were just worse. They don't get replaced. Bad guys don't just get targets and make production. So there's potential for a downturn here. Talking about more established guys on the team, Christian Kirk finished at wide receiver 47 last year. I think just missing time to injury and had kind of an up and down year. But he's consensus rank at 29. And that feels about right. I think he's going to get some of the targets that are departing will go to him over the middle. I think he's been playing a lot in the slot. I think he's in the 3rd year of his deal there with the Jags, and I think people thought it was paying him way too much, and he outproduced that and kind of made people eat their words, I guess is the best way I would say it.
Yeah.
Gabe Davis is coming over, and I could see something like that happening. This will be his second team. He has rookie contract with the Bills, where he was mostly just a downfield threat. Bills are swapping offensive coordinators. I think they have 1 or 2 times with Gabe Davis. Don't hold me to that, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Jags were able to do something similar here, where Christian Kirk, people thought he was getting paid too much, and then he lived up to that contract. Are they just maybe better at finding ways to use guys? They've done something similar with tight end Evan Ingram, where we'll transition to tight ends. I didn't list his ranking here in the notes. Where do you think he was last year in half point?
Last year in half point, as far as tight ends go, I think I would see him like as a top 12, top 15 or something like that, is what my guess be.
Go higher.
Really? Like how much higher you talk? Because there's no way he's top 5, right?
Go higher.
Really? Where did he end up at?
2.
Wow.
So
That
some of
is
that is
insane.
injuries. Mark Andrews was out. Missed a chunk of time last year. I'm not sure if Travis Kelce played all of his games, but he finished at tight end 2.
That's why I figured that would have been like Sam Laporta at tight end too.
I think he might have been 1. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly
Oh,
sure,
okay.
but it's incredibly surprising. He's being drafted this year at 8 at tight end, ranked at 8. He did have a career high in targets last year, so I don't know that it's gonna jump up more. Like I'm not betting for him to repeat at 2 or even completely repeat that production, but there are reasons to think he could get better. He was tight end 2 in total scoring, but just didn't really have touchdowns. If he has less targets, less receptions, but some of those receptions are touchdowns,
Yeah.
he could. There's no reason he couldn't stay there. So he's
And
someone
that is wild.
Yeah.
I would not have expected him in particular to be up at the top there. What's your big 3 takeaways from this team if you were to grab? I mean, there's a lot of good opportunity here, it feels like, as far as players go. If you were like, what's your big 3 takeaway on who you would want to draft off of this team?
I've got conflicting takeaways here. So I see how they could be worse this year. That's a lot of targets leaving the offense with not, like, I don't know that they're even completely making lateral moves from Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones to Gabe Davis and rookie Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not sure it's a lateral move. I don't know that 200 targets drops completely away, but I could see this team taking a step back there. But I think right now my other 2 takeaways are these guys are just too low. Like Trevor Lawrence could be a top 8 quarterback pretty easily. Evan Ingram is going to be underdrafted. I think Christian Kirk ends up being a little bit underdrafted, and Gabe Davis is basically free. And you should grab him and see what happens.
Where do you put ETN?
Top 10.
Top 10?
Yeah.
Is that somebody you take as running back 1?
As a running back 1, or would I?
A running back 1.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
would you draft him as your running back 1?
Yeah, I would feel okay with that. I know they're talking about trying to cut into his production with someone else there, but who?
Yeah.
And if they find a quality second guy, I think that the same way I said sometimes targets just go away because the offense is worse, like sometimes carries just appear if the second guy is good enough.
Yeah.